Hey folks, welcome to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. It's good to see you, good to hear you, Carlos. It's been a minute. We took last week off. I don't remember why. Some combination of, I don't know. Well, let's just say it. We didn't have our producer. Was that the main? And we can't do anything without our producer.
Well, that's definitely true, but I thought it was because you wrote your column about cooking, and you were going through like a 5-day bender on cooking salsa and guacamole and all this other stuff, so you had to prep. So
no,
that makes sense.
I don't think. Anyway, sorry we missed last week, but we are back this week. We're going to wrap up the Lions season, talk about the Super Bowl, talk about the headline that I saw, Carlos, I think from The Onion, that said that Taylor Swift was depressed now that she was going to be out of the spotlight, that the football season is over, which I thought was one of the better headlines I saw. There's hey, we'll get to our winter teams next week. The Wings they got hit a little bit in Edmonton, but they've been rolling. The Pistons made a lot of moves at the trade deadline. Juwan Howard is still employed at the University of Michigan with his basketball team. They lost by 30 to Illinois. Michigan State's kind of been up and down, had a big win against Illinois. So there's a lot to talk about. But Carlos, we got to wrap this up, don't we? We got to, not only that, and I don't want to say this never happens, because this happens probably more than folks think. Carlos and I actually agree on most things in life, but we were in complete agreement that the Lions would not beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And he wrote a good column about it the other day. I would have written the same thing if I'd written about that. It's just one of those things. It would have been fun, though, Carlos, to see firsthand, to see it unfold live, what they needed. But I think, you did a good job at extrapolating, imagining what it would look like, right?
Yeah. The one thing I have a question for you before we get into it is, I was thinking, and I was going to put it in there. I was like, this is going off on too much of a tangent, but is it worse to get there and lose the Super Bowl? Because my perspective was, growing up as a big LA Kings fan, when they finally made it, and the Kings were the Lions basically of Los Angeles when I was growing up. And when they got there in 1993 in the final against Montreal, they were close. They won the first game. They were about to win the second game, and then all this shenanigans happened. They were going to come back to LA up 2-0. And anyway, they ended up losing to the Canadians, and it kind of killed the fanatic in me for a while, for a few years, because it hurt me so much to have invested so much. And it was a build. The Kings were getting better. They had Barry Melrose as the coach, and they were ascending. They had Wayne Gretzky. And then when they got there, I was like, oh man, seriously? Like, we get there and this happens. Like, when are we ever going to get there again? And they didn't get there again for a really long time until they won it. So is it worse? Or is it like, oh no, this is hopeful, we got to the Super Bowl at least? So what do you think fans would prefer? Like, don't even get there. Don't even bring us to the edge.
I think that it's circumstantial, as most things in life. And I think that in this particular case, I don't know I'm trying to remember when the Kings moved to LA, but it's not the same in terms
They didn't move to LA. They were always in LA. They're original.
When did they start playing in LA? 67?
Mm-hmm.
So they've been there for a while.
Yeah.
I think.
How dare you think that every team in LA moves to LA? That's culturalist, Shawn.
Well, just about every other team did, right? I mean,
almost every team did. Yeah.
You stole Brooklyn's team.
We took San Diego's Clippers. We took
Minneapolis's. You took Minneapolis's team. You took Brooklyn's team.
Anaheim Ducks, the only original LA team.
That'd be the one. Well, what about the Angels? The Angels, is that an original team?
The Angels were, yes. The Angels were.
But if the two teams you care about the most, you stole from other markets.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The baseball team.
Los Angeles Lions sounds pretty good too, I think. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I would say that I think that the fact that the Super Bowl's been around since 66? Was that the first year? I could never quite remember that date.
That sounds right, because they didn't call the Super Bowl right away.
No, it was a retro. We call Super Bowl I and II
1967. Packers over Chiefs 35-10 in LA. Okay. Coliseum.
Yeah. So the fact that they've never been to the Super Bowl all these years, and the fact that the Super Bowl is the mecca of American sports, I think it would have been very painful if they'd lost, for sure. But I think getting there would have been, I think Lions fans would prefer to have lost in the Super Bowl than the NFC title game. I guess that's the best way to put it.
That's fair. I do think that, and you have to, this is something I thought about too, was like, well, and the Super Bowl is different because there's a whole 2 weeks of hype that goes into it. So people would have been really enjoying the talk and everything and the what's coming up.
It extends the season, right, Carlos? It extends the joy for 2 more weeks.
Yes. Yeah. So even though your hopes would have been dashed and, losing to Patrick Mahomes and Taylor Swift's boyfriend and all that, like it would have been like, well, we got there. It was exciting. It was a fun ride. And like you said, it extended it. So football's probably a little bit different that way.
Yeah, there's it's funny because I've tried to see some fan reaction from the 49ers fans, and I know some people. I mean, I have some family that lives out there, and I know some people, and they're crushed partly because they've been there. What, this is the second time in 5 years they've lost the Super Bowl. Of course, they lost 10, 12 years ago, whenever that was. Was it 12 years, 13 years ago when Harbaugh was coaching them and they lost?
Yeah.
So that's 3 losses in the last 15 years, but 2 in the last 4, and then they've lost 2 NFC title games. So for them, they keep getting there and knocking on the door, and they keep falling. So there's a level of frustration. Having said all that, by the way, that makes me think of a line of Jerry Seinfeld, who used to joke about, why do people say, having said all that? But and we're dating ourselves here. But no, there's some resignation too. I been talking to some people these last couple of days that it's Patrick Mahomes. This is how it was for the NBA with Michael Jordan for a while, right? Or even the NFL with Tom Brady to a degree. And so so that lessens it a little bit, knowing that you can get frustrated at this call, that decision, this mistake, whatever. All fans are going to do that, but it's Patrick Mahomes, right? And there's this sense that he's just a little too good in certain moments. So that maybe helps soften it a touch. And I think that definitely would have if it had been the Lions in there.
Yeah. That it's a small consolation because, we have been in the Brady and Aaron Rodgers era has now given way, not just this year, obviously, but in recent years to the Patrick Mahomes era. And look at Baltimore. I mean, they went to Buffalo and Baltimore and won. And then this team was just not going to be stopped. And I also wonder with the 49ers, just they're in a little bit of a pickle with Brock Purdy because he's obviously good and good enough to get you there, but he's not a difference maker for them, and he's Mr. Relevant, there's you have to love everything about that storyline and what he's done and what they've done with him. And Kyle Shanahan, the genius, is proven by what he's been able to do. And, but I guarantee you there's some undercurrent within the fans and within that community thinking, man, what if we had Lamar? What if we had CJ Stroud? What if we had, that's a very important position. And then, I don't want to call him a game manager, but he's in that mold a little bit. He's not the guy who's going to win you the game, necessarily. I mean, he's had very good games, but and I appreciate this about the 49ers, that they're a whole team. Their defense is great and their offense is, very good too. It can be
best
electric.
in the NFL last year by number.
And but it's like, you're just wondering, hey, when we're losing to Mahomes and, I think when the last time they lost him, he wasn't the quarterback, right? I don't think that was in 4 years ago.
Garoppolo was. Jimmy Garoppolo.
Was it Garoppolo? Yeah. Which
and
is
they
another.
Also they led in the second half of that game too.
Yeah. Which is it's a testament to Shanahan, but he's like, I'm getting these guys, these non-elite quarterbacks and getting to the Super Bowl, but I'm not winning it. So it's tough, when do you make that decision of maybe that's the missing piece? Maybe we saw what Mahomes did, when he had to do it, just keeping plays alive, just, making plays, running when he needed to judiciously. And then the defense, they both had really good defenses. And that certainly was one of the reasons that game was so tight for so long.
No, for sure. A few things. I would very, very respectfully, gently push back just a touch on Purdy. I think he is a difference maker. He's just not Mahomes. I mean, it's not, to me, it's not black or white in that way. I mean, he was the difference in the Lions game in the second half because he can get out and make plays with his feet. I mean, that's the thing, right? He didn't against the Chiefs as much because it's a completely, I mean, they were the number 2 defense in the NFL. They were, you could argue the best defense in the NFL in the playoffs. I mean, what they did shutting down Miami, going into Baltimore and holding them to 10 points, shutting Buffalo down in the second half. And the 49ers are the most explosive offense in the league this year by number, and the best overall offense. And they scored 19 points, and one of the touchdowns they needed a trick play. Yeah, to pull off, and that was looked like a pick six for a second.
Oh yeah,
right?
It was horrible.
So it really did, and I think Purdy. I mean, he's young. I think he can get a little bit better. I'm not saying he's going to be Mahomes or even Burrow or I mean Allen's a different story, or Lamar, but he can make some plays. It's just, can he make enough? Look, to me, the Chiefs won. It's not. I know we want to relate this to the Lions, and maybe this is the way to pivot to the Lions. But think about the third down play in, I want to say, overtime when they moved the ball down the field. They had the ball first, and I want to say or maybe no, I take it back. I think it was the third down play in the end of regulation or close to the end of regulation. Last time the 49ers had the ball. And it was third down, and they had, was it Ayuk or somebody open in the end zone, but Chris Jones came running up the middle. Yep. It was unblocked. It was a six-man defensive front, which was really clever, and Jones was unblocked. And Purdy had nowhere to go. And if he had even a second more, that's a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Right? So to me, that's not Purdy's fault. That's, right? I mean, that's kind of what that's what you wrote about, right? And you can talk about San Francisco's defense. They weren't as good as the Chiefs. It wasn't as good as the Chiefs' defense. It's really good, but man, there's nothing like a guy coming up the middle rushing the quarterback. And they got the best guy in the league to do that. And you combine that with 2 really good cornerbacks, right? They've drafted well. I mean, they got really good cornerbacks. That's a wicked combination on defense. Yeah. Just, and we saw it unfold. And how many? Jones has stopped at least 2 touchdowns. Maybe 3, single-handedly. I mean, it's crazy.
And that's the thing with, I mean, I don't know the history of the Super Bowl, every year, but, you generally need a pretty good defense because, these kind of games are going to happen. You're going to get into these tighter games. And, that was the argument too. And this is why you lost the NFC title game is your defense couldn't hold on to that lead in the second half. And then the offense, couldn't score suddenly because San Francisco made enough adjustments in the second half. And their defense underperformed in the first half. So the Lions have a 24-7 lead and they just can't hold on to it. They're not built for playing close, tight defensive games. You have an explosive offense, but then when that offense gets shut down a little bit, the defense has to do its part. And, in its incarnation this last season, that just wasn't who they were. And I don't know what, it's not like they haven't committed any resources, but, we keep seeing, right, guys coming in, cornerbacks on 1-year deals for the Lions, the Mosleys and stuff. And, CJ Gardner-Johnson on one, it just doesn't seem to be like a commitment to making a really long-term fix on a significant investment on their defense, especially the back, the secondary. You like to see that more. And Brian Branch is kind of the start of that, and you've drafted well there. It's their first really promising, defensive back that they've had. That's going to be obviously a significant part of their secondary for years to come. But you need other pieces and players to go with that. And, Brad Holmes has already told us, right? What did he tell us? Like, don't expect, don't buy into the hype of the whatever and people talking down and they're not going to necessarily get big names and all this stuff. And, okay, then, I guess we're doing the same thing next year, try to draft some guys, but you're not going to go after any significant name guys in free agency and defense. on the back end, and you're not going to make an upgrade at the trade deadline either. Like, I don't know how this is supposed to play out differently with your defense. If you want a team that's just good enough to get to the NFC title game, I guess that's what you're going to do. But something has to change with what they're doing defensively, and I don't know if Aaron Glenn's the answer. I don't know if, he is the answer. Maybe if he had better players, it's hard to say, but they're just not on par. I mean, this year they weren't on par with San Francisco defensively, or Kansas City, certainly.
No, yeah, Kansas City is a different story to me. I mean, obviously they played with San Francisco, and I think they would have been competitive with Kansas City. I don't think either one of us are saying it was going to be a blowout, but at least I don't think. But, you think back to that opening game, and I know that's a long time ago. The Chiefs didn't have Chris Jones. They didn't have Travis Kelce either, but they did have Chris Jones. And, you could say, well, the Lions got a lot better offensively as the season went on. And they did. And maybe Kelce makes a difference.
The Lions won by a point, so you would think that Jones and Kelce would have made a difference.
No, for sure. And the Chiefs had a drop, a couple of them, a huge one.
A lot of drops.
A huge one at the end, which probably would have set up a game-winning field goal. And the whole narrative of the season changes if that ball's not dry. I mean, not the whole narrative, but they obviously still would have had the success that they had for the most part. But, that one game sometimes changes the domino effect of that, the confidence effect of that. I think Campbell, they still would have found their confidence. But so, no, if you're putting the Lions now, yeah, it's really, it's like, when you think about when Tom Brady got beat in the Super Bowl, it was because the Giants had a defensive line. To me, that's the key. I know they need to get better in the secondary. They need another cornerback for sure. But how good are the Chiefs cornerbacks if Chris Jones isn't up front?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got to cover longer. You can shrink the time a cornerback has to cover. I mean, it's a chicken or an egg thing, right? Well, to me, the egg is the defensive line.
But what's the chicken?
The secondary, I guess, right? It starts at it starts at the defensive line, and we saw that in the Super Bowl, and I'm not sure how Brad Holmes is going to fix that. I'm sure he'll draft, but I don't know. I mean, you could go get Chris Jones. I bet the 49ers would love to go get Chris Jones. They'd win the Super Bowl if Chris Jones were not in Kansas City. I mean, maybe they could go overpay for him just to take him from Kansas City. Right. Well, yeah, hey, I don't know if he'll be any good for us, but it doesn't matter as long as he's not playing for you.
He's not with them.
I mean, you could see that, right, man? It's just sometimes teams do that. Remember the 49ers and the Cowboys used to they stole Deion Sanders one year. The Cowboys did, I want to say, or vice versa. I can't remember how it was, but yeah, it's funny how that used to happen.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah, that would be crazy if they signed Chris Jones, but it doesn't seem like from everything Brad Holmes said, it doesn't seem like that's even a consideration. But it's funny because, and I'm not going to turn into a hockey podcast, but it's kind of funny how Steve Yzerman is very upfront about saying, like draft picks, you don't know. Nobody knows, but free agents, So like to him, that's always a sure bet is trading for a guy who's done it versus a guy you hope is going to do it. And, it's different because they draft them so young. They got to develop like in baseball and all that. But yeah, Chris Jones, I mean, and I think, the Lions are at the point of they're one or two players away, whatever.
Or
right?
two. Yeah.
They're not far. I mean, this is the difference.
They're not.
And
they're not.
You need, if you want to, there's a whole calculus of the salary cap, and you're going to lose some free agents, and you got to add to the offensive line probably, and you got to, there's the draft. So there's a lot of complication. You can't just like, all right, let's just throw everything at Chris Jones, and then there's money left over for nothing, I understand that, but certainly they're the kind of team that you add him and you're as close to guaranteed as going to the Super Bowl as you can probably think. You can't account for fluke and bad bounces and turnovers, whatever. I mean, but it's like when going way back when the Packers signed Reggie White, right?
They were
absolutely.
He was I mean, it's if you want to go back that far, they kind of are there. I mean, obviously they need another cornerback. They're probably going to need another guard on the offensive line, and they got to keep Ragnow healthy. The whole thing, to me, if they don't have Ragnow, that changes a lot too. I mean, it's amazing how you think. I mean, he's that good and that important, considering the kind of quarterback Goff is, right? That's the thing. It's funny, and I saw a lot of San Francisco folks complaining about the right side of their offensive line. That's an area where they want to get better. They feel like that let them down a little bit, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's interesting. You got to have a dominant. You got to have a dominant line on one side or the other, right? You got to have something. And the Lions have a dominant offensive line, the Chiefs have a dominant defensive line. You know, they don't need a dominant offensive line because they got Patrick.
Yeah, and that's a good question. Is just how are you built? You know, how do you want to be built? How do you want to, and if your philosophy is we're going to have a dominant offensive line and we've got to pour significant resources into interior offensive linemen, that's really going to change how you build the rest of your team. You know, Creed Humphrey is their center and they won 2 Super Bowls with him. He's a 2nd-round draft pick. You know, I mean, if you feel you have to draft somebody or overpay in free agency or whatever it is, you know, for a player, you know, and with Ragnow, I mean, he said he's not retiring, so he's coming back this next season, but he doesn't have a lot left. I mean,
no, he doesn't. He doesn't.
I think to me, that's part of the window
I agree completely.
He's an excellent.
And he's key, right? He's key to this offense and to this quarterback.
Right.
He's a huge part of it. And you're right, that is part of the window. Not only what the other part of that window to me with the Lions offensively is that you're right, you're going to have to invest money in this offensive line. Goff's going to have to get paid. And you got really good skill players. Well, St. Brown's about to get paid. I'm on Ross St. Brown's getting paid. But you got Gibbs and Laporta on rookie deals. That's part of the window too, right?
Absolutely.
Those guys are gonna make some money at some point.
Right.
I mean, maybe even Jameson Williams, if he builds on what he showed the last month of the season or so. So, I mean, you never know.
He's closer to a bust than he is a second contract guy.
I mean, we'll see. They opened up the playbook for him late, and he started making some plays. We'll see.
This season will tell us a lot more about Jameson Williams.
It will. And no, assuming he can stay healthy. I mean, you could make an argument that they could use a little bigger possession receiver to go along with everything else they have in the place of Reynolds. Reynolds is really good and made key catches all year, but when they're on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, or when Campbell likes to go for those 4th downs, to have a bigger receiver that you can go, right? They don't really have anybody like that.
Yeah.
As great as St. Brown is, he gets a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And which is why Reynolds made so many of those critical catches this year, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what DJ Chark was supposed to be, and it didn't work out.
Exactly. No. He played better he did.
He was okay.
When they got to win it late in the season, he was better. You're right, but no, you can make an argument with that. So, all right, let's take a break here and get to our sponsor and come back and maybe talk about some what ifs in the Super Bowl with 4th down decisions, 3rd down, 3rd and 4th down decisions, punt, field goals, all that sort of stuff, because they probably need a field goal kicker too. Although San Francisco has a great young field goal kicker, Kansas City has the best field goal kicker in the league. And sometimes that's not enough either. But it's kind of fun to imagine what Campbell might have done in those scenarios. We can talk about that when we come right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos, I did have one more quick thought to wrap up that last segment. To kind of go back, we're talking about Mahomes and the Jordan effect and the psychology of all that. You know what makes it a little bit worse even is that the Chiefs lost, what did they lose, 5 out of 8 games at one point or whatever. I mean, they were scuffling around. Offensively, they were really struggling. You're like, okay. And Baltimore looked like the dominant team. You're thinking, okay, maybe you have a chance. It reminded me when the Bulls, not every year when Jordan won a title, were they great in the regular season. I know they set the record and had the record for a long time at one point with the 71 or whatever, 70. But there were plenty of years where they would win in the mid-50s, low 50s even. And then the playoffs would come around and like, oh, God. Right? I mean, that's what this Chiefs team felt like. They weren't a great offensive team this year, were they? They were a great defensive team with the best quarterback in football. And that's demoralizing, when you're trying to go up and beat. There's another part of that, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, the playoffs are a different animal, I think, for every team, really, for pro teams. And Mahomes, I mean, they settled down. They lost to Denver at one point. I think it was midseason.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like crazy. What's going on? They're division teams still, but Mahomes just has a different effect. And you see that with Jordan. Jordan would turn it on in the playoffs. LeBron would do the same thing. And basketball's different. Such a long season. You can't be dominant for 82 and then keep it going. But the playoffs are always more intense. But yeah, I mean, if you would think this is the one year that not many people were really talking about the Chiefs midway through the year. It was a foregone conclusion. It's going to be Baltimore and Dallas, and all this, and
or Philly start off 10-1.
Yeah,
right. For a while it was Philly. Yeah,
and Philly, and then it was like, well, Dallas they were just lighting it up on offense, and but yeah, and that's. As Dak Prescott's a polarizing player, but Jalen Hurts, definitely people were like, hey, maybe this is the next, Mahomes or whatever. And Lamar Jackson, they changed him a little bit and be more of a pocket passer. And that's all working. It's great. Of course, they seem like the dominant team in either conference that was going to make the Super Bowl. And you're absolutely right. That's a really great comparison. As the Michael Jordan thing is, sometimes if you get greatness in you, and don't forget this too. I think it does matter when you've played it. I mean, this is part of the magic of the Patriots is they got to the Super Bowl so often. They knew how to handle it. They knew it wasn't a huge game to them. It was very like they understood, the hype that went into it, the cadence of that, the rhythm of the 2 weeks. Get into the game itself. An hour-long halftime. The commercial breaks are longer. It's a different. All the players talk about this. The first time they go to the Super Bowl for the first time is it's a different game. Rhythm. You never played a game like that until you get there. And when you know how to handle it and all the distractions and everything else, it helps. It's an advantage. And the 49ers had been there a few years ago, but not recently. Brock Purdy hadn't been there, so that was another advantage, right?
No, for sure. So speaking of the Super Bowl and Dan Campbell, it's just a fun exercise a little bit. So there were several instances where I was watching thinking, okay, what would Dan Campbell do? And now it's different too, because his defense and his field goal kicker are very different from what Shanahan and especially Andy Reid had, right? So the first time I thought, okay, let me just throw this one out. We'll start with this one. Because I wrote about this, but I didn't actually include this one, which I wished I would have, but I was getting a little long. Andy Reid, the Kansas City Chiefs, into regulation. Travis Kelce gets loose on a 25, 30-year-old order, gets around the end, looks like he's 25 years old, running around the end. And you're like, oh, my goodness, they aren't just looking to tie this game up with a field goal. They might actually go win this, right? So they get down and they have, I'm trying to remember how many seconds, 10, 11 seconds. It's enough time to run a play first and not quite goal, I think from the 11-yard line. And they don't pick any yards up. So it's second down. They're like 3 seconds left. They're down by 3. What does Dan Campbell do in that spot? Does he tie the game and go to overtime?
No. He goes for it.
On second and 11 from the 11-yard line, you think he goes for that?
Second 11.
It with 3 seconds left. It was from the 11-yard line. Andy Reid brings out the field goal kicker. What do you think Dan Campbell does in that spot?
Super Bowl.
It
was a 29-yard field goal for Butker.
So you can assume Badgley would have made that field goal.
Well, here's the question: is does Dan Campbell know the overtime rules? That's the big question. Because
I would think
49ers didn't.
Shanahan did, but a lot of the players did.
A lot of the players did. Okay, since you're guaranteed a possession, no, I think he kicks it. I think he kicks it.
I think he kicks it too.
Yeah,
that would have been awfully. Okay.
So and Badgley's going to doink it off the right upright or something.
It's 11. It's 11 yards. It's 11. All right, let's just say hypothetically, it's from the 6. Does he do what he does? in Dallas. I know it's a 2-point conversion, but it's the same. It's the same scenario otherwise. And it's you pick up the 6 yards, you win the Super Bowl. You don't, you lose the Super Bowl. Let's just say he's like second and goal from the 6, 3 seconds left, one play. What does he do?
From the 6. Oh,
like in Dallas. Does he do that again? Because in Dallas it was after the 5 after the penalty it was. But the 2-point was from the 7-yard line. I want to say so. They needed 7 yards to win the game.
Yeah, but then I would say because of the overtime rules that he would kick it. I don't think he would.
Okay.
I don't think he'd lose it because I totally did not disagree with him in Dallas because I know he does not want to go to overtime and then he loses the coin flip and then it's over. And, he always wants, one, he wants control of the situation, and 2, he doesn't trust his defense and the kicker. So he doesn't want it to come down to that.
Yeah, your coin flip could put your defense out there first, right? So exactly. Okay, so that's a fairly easy one.
What do you think? What do you think?
I think he kicks. I think he kicks with the overtime rules. I think he kicks. Definitely from 2nd and 11. I think he kicks.
Yeah, there's no question. 2nd and 11. That's the other thing too is don't forget. I mean, and I don't know. I'd wonder how much Campbell is susceptible to this, but and he's obviously played in some. The Dallas game was a pretty big stage, but the Super Bowl is the stage, and to do something like that, to go for it on from the 6-yard line and get stopped against a really good defense, like what are you lost the game. You chose the thing that lost you the game. You'll be remembered for that for a long time, as opposed to, hey, we kicked and the guy missed, and it's what's his name, the Buffalo Bills kicker at that point. Well, what are you going to do? You miss. People can miss.
Okay.
Defend
it.
It's okay. How much can you defend it? And he could defend a missed field goal.
The other 3 scenarios, they're all 4th down situations in scoring territory. The first is early in the 4th quarter. Kyle Shanahan's 4th and 4. Kyle Shanahan goes for it, and Purdy throws an out sideline pass to Kittle. I think George Kittle. I think it was his first catch of the game, and they pick it up. Campbell goes for that too, right? It was sort of surprising. It was out of character for Shanahan to go for that there. And they were down. They were in field goal territory, and they were down 3. So they could have tied the game, and Moody's got a great leg, rookie kicker, whatever, young kicker. So the consistency's maybe not quite, but super talented kicker. Right? 3rd round draft pick or 2nd round. I can't remember where it was picked. Yeah, huge leg.
So Kansas City's leading 13-10. It's early in the 4th quarter, and it's 4th and 3 at the Kansas City 15. You're down 13-10.
So it's a chip shot. So do you? Yeah. And he went for it. Shanahan went for it. Campbell goes for it, right? Or does he take the chip shot? Because that was kind of out of character for Shanahan, from what I understand. Yeah. He's not been as risky because he has one of the better defenses in the league, right?
Yeah.
So.
I would say, and so this is the thing that's different about Dan Campbell, and that what goes into his decisions here is he goes for it because, I guess he figures if we get stopped, we get 2 yards, we're at the Kansas City, 13 or whatever. Yeah, the defense gets, they have to stop whatever, 80-yard drive-ish, they have time to possibly stop it. 3 points you're just tying it. You're not going to win it. It's probably not going to come down to that. There's someone else is going to score. So better to go for it. And if he likes, the other thing too, I think some of these calls that they make is they go out there, you always have the option looking at the defense and deciding we don't like the look, we don't like the matchup, whatever the play call is, you can call a timeout, whatever. You don't want to have to use a timeout. I think they had all 3 of their timeouts still probably. But you can you can survey the defense. So, but I do think Campbell that far down into the Kansas City territory, I think he goes for it. What do you think?
Probably. Although he might have surprised us there and actually tied the game because it's early in the 4th. But on the other hand, low scoring game with his defense. Let's say the score is the same. He's got his defense. Yeah, maybe he thinks, how many more chances am I going to get to take the lead, right? So.
Yeah.
I bet he goes for it. I bet he goes for it too. All right, then the next two into the last 49ers last drive into the fourth quarter. It's not completed because Kansas City gets the ball back. 4th and 5 or 4.
4th and 5. Which the KC 35.
4th and 5.
Tied up 16-16.
Shanahan elects to kick a field goal.
Mm-hmm.
What does Campbell do in that spot that far out?
It's a 53-yard field goal for Moody.
Yeah, in a tie game at 4th and 5.
Because he goes for it.
Here's the other context that's important. 1:53 left. Kansas City has 2 timeouts. So a first down there doesn't allow you to take a field goal shot to win the game, but it does set up the chance to get one more first down and then basically run the clock out and then either kick to win it or to go to overtime. That's what the going for on that 4th down sets up. It sets up a fairly decent chance to win the game.
But you missed that field goal. You missed that field goal,
lose.
And Kansas City has the ball at their 42 with 2 timeouts left and almost 2 minutes left. Yeah,
which is like a minute and a half more than Mahomes needs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No question.
He's like, go ahead and take some time off the clock.
No, if you miss the field goal, you lose. If you don't convert on the 4th down, you lose. If you make the field goal, then obviously you still could lose because there was enough time for him to go get a touchdown, and Kansas City almost did. They got all the way down to the 11. But so what does Campbell do? Does he kick the field goal on that, or does he go for it and try to go win the game? And not give Kansas City the ball back.
He has to go for it because he can't bank on Michael Badgley trying to make a 53-yarder,
or Mahomes keeping Mahomes out of the end zone.
Right. I mean, because it's you're asking a lot from the kicker you have, because you don't have Moody or Bucker, so you're asking a lot from the guy. And I think coaches think of things. That's just not Campbell. They're kind of like generals, like Army generals or military. Like, what is my strength? Is it my tank division? Is it my air squad? Am I air squadron? What is my strength? And am I going to die with my strength or my weakness? And that's what they think about. And it's like, your strength is your offense. And you have, a really good tight end, a really good receiver, really good running back, 2 running backs, 1 out of the backfield. You have more options. You trust your quarterback. You don't get it. There's, you miss the first down and they get the ball anyway, pretty much right there. In fact, it's better. If you miss the field goal, it goes you back farther. So I think he goes for it. I think it's pretty cut and dry. He has to go for it there.
I do too. And Shanahan played conventional wisdom. Again, in fairness to him, he has the better defense and a better.
But if you had Matt Prater,
kicker,
you go for it. If you have a good kicker on your team, then you go for it. And that was one of my points in my column too, was you got to get a better kicker. You can't. No,
you do. You do. But the field goal in that sense, in that spot, San Francisco kicked the field goal and they still lost. They still lost because in the end, field goals don't. I mean, we'll talk about this in a minute. Let's talk about the next one, and then we can get into the bigger picture with this.
Sure.
Real quick. So the next one comes into overtime. San Francisco gets the ball first, move the ball down the field. This time it's 4th and 4 yards. So does Dan Campbell go for that? Knowing that Kansas City gets the ball, they get their chance, right? And they can tie it with a field goal or they can win it.
Well, let's back up for just a second. San Francisco wins the coin toss and they elect to go on offense. Is that the right call?
Well, okay. So
knowing that the other team is also going to possess, even if you score a touchdown, the other team gets a chance.
Here's the problem with this. It's so new it's interesting. I heard Shanahan talk about they did some analytics, the best that they could, because there's really nothing. You're not really studying. It's all hypothetical. It's all modeling. You're not basing any of it on actual football that's been played over 10 years, right? So you're modeling. But what their mathematical models told them was that, and based on their offense and their defense, they take the ball and score a touchdown or field goal, and then, but preferably a touchdown. And then Kansas City, even if you can't stop them, they tie it. Then they get the ball with the first chance to win in sudden death circumstances, because then the next score wins.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand the logic of that, right? I totally understand the logic of that. The problem is, if you give Mahomes 4 downs for 10 yards all the way down the field because they have to score.
Yeah.
How do you stop that?
Yeah.
So that's that. I mean, what? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is there. I mean, how do analytics account for, okay, this is the best quarterback ever or second best ever, whatever, probably eventually ever. I mean, he's certainly the best quarterback in the game. How do you account for that in an analytical model?
You know, I don't know about these analytics and whatever, but, you know, to me, it's simple strategy of let them go first and then you do something based on what they do. Like and this is exactly what happened, right? They kick a field goal and Kansas City now has the decision, you know, do we want to tie it with a field goal or do we want to win it with a touchdown? We have those options to us, available to us. We know what we have to do. We have to either tie it or win, you know,
for sure.
And then
but the problem is
if you'd flipped it, right, and Kansas City had gotten the ball first, and let's say they kick a field goal, then, and this is the situation that they're faced with, the 49ers is fourth and 4 from the 9-yard line. You know, do you want to kick the field goal and extend the game, or do you want to win it? You know, you have that. You can win the game. You have the option of winning the game. First drive, you're not winning anything. You're doing something.
No, you're not. But what if Kansas City scores? So here's the other part. Kansas City gets the ball first. They score a touchdown. Then basically you are giving them a chance to win the game the next time they get the ball, unless you go for 2, which you could, and which
Dan Campbell would
read somewhere. He might have, and I thought about that. And would he have done it? And I read somewhere that Andy Reid said they had seriously considered going that if San Francisco had scored a touchdown, they were considering trying to win it on a 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
Now, who knows if they actually do it when you get down there?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. But anyway, so you get back to that 4th down. You're down there, knowing Mahomes is on the other side, knowing he's going to have 4 downs. That they're at least into scoring territory. They're going to use 4 downs because you have to, because they can't.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't convert, the game's over. In fact, they did have 1 4th down and they converted. But knowing how hard that's going to be to stop Mahomes with the 4 downs, do you go for your own 4th and 4 and try to score a touchdown?
I would have, you know, because that field goal is probably not going to win the game. And it's also it's 4th and 4 from the 9, which means you only need 4 yards for a first down. You don't have to score. So you can get 4 yards. They're going to be guarding the end zone more than they're going to be guarding a first down. So you have a chance to, you know, extend the drive. You don't have to score there. So, and Kyle Shanahan being a genius, the genius he is running all these analytics in his mind, and he forgot to plug in that Patrick Mahomes plays for the other team or whatever. You know, some guy's playing Madden on the side. Hey, go ahead, Kyle. You know, so I would have gone for it. I know Dan Campbell would have gone for it.
He would have, because he would have felt like a field goal was going to lose them the game.
Right.
And
also, if you know, let's say you don't get it, you get, let's say 3 yards, right? You're still at their 6-yard line. They have to go 94 yards, or, you know, I mean,
so you still have an outside chance of a fumble or a tip
and your
pass
defense
at the
is really
line,
good.
or whatever, you know. And even if you're the Lions defense, you still think, well, maybe we can make a play, maybe we'll get lucky. I mean, you don't lose if you don't convert right there, although you probably do lose. You know, you probably do lose, but you don't lose in that moment, at least.
Right.
But no, I felt like those 2 calls, I don't want to say they cost, because they cost the 49ers the game, because, you know, there were lots of other things. The punt that landed on the guy's foot, that was just bad luck. The McCaffrey fumble, whatever. Although Mahomes threw a pick and they fumbled deep in scoring territory too. So that sort of even itself out. But they lost because they couldn't make a play defensively. But to me, those 2 4th down calls were conventional wisdom: tie the score or tie the game, go up and 1, tie the game in the other. That's conventional wisdom. Take the points, take the field goals. What we heard from Lions fans for 2 weeks. Take the points. Well, you know what? That doesn't mean you're going to win either. And I guess that's the point, right? The other decision doesn't guarantee anything, as we just saw.
Yeah, it doesn't. But you have to know who you are, and that's the one thing that, I've written this many times, and maybe people just don't read enough of my analysis.
Of Carlos Monarez.
Yeah, and it's the defense is not good. That's part of it's, and I guarantee you, if Dan Campbell had a better defense, if he had the Chiefs or the 49ers defense, his decision making would be different. Not entirely, but somewhat different, because it's like, what do you have on the other side? You can rely on your defense. And the problem is, he can't come out and say, I don't trust my defense all that much, or I don't trust my kicker that much. He'll just say, well, I liked how we were playing. I liked how we were moving the ball. We felt good about it. We trust Jared Goff and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, the fans just sometimes think you trust Jared Goff, and, okay, but it's like, he's not telling you the whole story. You should be able to look at that defense and realize, you can't put the head on them and force them to have to win the game for you. So that's why it's important to beef it up and go get Chris Jones, Brad Holmes. But yeah, that's not going to happen.
No, but would that be something that would got him? No, I'm with you. I still think the 1 4th down, he didn't go for it at the end of the second quarter, first half in San Francisco when the Lions were there. I don't know that those extra 4 points, if they do convert and get the win, that they're up, then they would have been up 28-7 at the half instead of 24. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. Ultimately, it might have. But it was interesting. He was conservative there and took the points. And
yeah,
in any case, I don't know. It's just a fun exercise. It's like we do in so much of sports. It's what is. But I'm with you. Dan Campbell would have gone. He would have done something memorable, win or lose, in the Super Bowl, right? It would have.
It would have been, yeah. That's the one thing that I regret the most of not having the Lions in Super Bowls. In all these scenarios, we got to remember this. If they get back there, if they get to the Super Bowl, is all the different scenarios that would have possibly played out and what Dan Campbell would have done. And yeah, that would have been a sight. It would have made everybody forget about Dallas.
No, it absolutely would have. Just on that stage, it's funny. And real quickly, I don't know if I've talked about this on this podcast. Maybe I have. But my youngest son is starting his career as a coach, a basketball coach, and he was telling me, we're talking about some of these scenarios after the Super Bowl, like you and I are, and he was telling me that he learned a lot listening to Dan Campbell's press conference after the Cowboys game. No, sorry, maybe that one, but after the 49ers game, that he said, because Campbell talked about, and you were there. Hey, this is part of it. I make these decisions. You live with the consequences. You're going to get, I'm paraphrasing, you know there's going to be heat, and you got to deal with it. You got to go with your gut or what you believe in, and if it doesn't work, you got to deal with it.
Yeah.
You got to stand in there and take it. And my son loved that. He said it helped him think about, when his team loses or he makes a decision, whatever, that, okay, because they're not all going to work out. And not at all that you're going to lose.
Yeah,
everybody loses. But can you handle it? Can you own it and handle it? And the way Campbell did after that was, it got lost and all that because you're like, oh my God, they were almost at the Super Bowl. But I thought about that when my son told me that. I was like, yeah, that's a good point. That's part of coaching. You have to be able to take that. And I thought that the fact that that's what my son took from all of that ultimately was interesting. So it got me to thinking about
it. The thing with Campbell that also helps is that he knows what to say, how to say it without throwing people under the bus, without blaming other parts. And like the defense is part of it, right? Is when you know that your defense just doesn't measure up, you have to know how to spin things the right way and say, well, I like the way our offense was playing and I wanted to win the game there. And, I just didn't want to have to hope for a coin toss and this and that, so that's part of it, is he knows what goes into it, but it's also communicating that after the fact when people are, asking you to defend your decisions. You can't give them the whole story. So it's just like, this is what I believe, and how am I going to say this the right way? That's why there's, for the listener out there, the coaches don't come into the media room right away. They have time before for several reasons. They call it a cool down period, but part of it is they know what questions are going to get asked. Their media people tell them, their PR people tell them, like, I'm sure they're going to ask you about this and this and this. There's been a lot of stuff on Twitter about it, blah, 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 be prepared. And you have to be prepared for those questions and what your answer is going to be. And by the way, I am convinced still with the Dallas game, when after they had to go for the second time on the 2-point conversion from the 7-yard line, that was a fake. I'm convinced. You go back and look at that. Burkett and I don't agree with it. Probably a lot of people, they thought it was crazy. You're still going for it. And I don't think so. If you look at that, it was just a hard count situation, and they did draw Micah Parsons off, and then they got closer again. I think that was definitely a hard count situation. But yeah, it's tough. Your son's right. I mean, the magic though of Dan Campbell is he really communicates well. He knows what to say and how to say it. And the big thing with him too is that, he's in control of himself. Even when he doesn't like things, you can tell there's things that doesn't like the way questions asked or a certain line of questioning. And it's tough after a loss. It's an emotional time. And most coaches don't handle that very well. It's hard for them to do it. But yeah, I mean, that's hard. That's really hard to and your son, I don't think, is doing press conferences, but
no, he's not. No, he's not. But no, he's got to answer to
parents.
Some parents get angry or whatever.
That's even harder.
That's its own kind of pressure.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It's not fans, or columnists or whatever. It's different. But no, I thought that was interesting. You're talking about all these decisions and just hey, this is what I think. This is what I'm going to do, and I'll live with the consequences. And I know that heat's going to come my way, and I'll figure out how to handle it so I can still sleep, basically, right? So I can sleep and eat and function as a human being.
Absolutely,
because it's a lot of pressure. And in any case, I just wanted to mention that. I thought that was interesting, and thinking about all these Super Bowl decisions. And hopefully one day we get that, Carlos. Having to make an epic decision in the Super Bowl to win or lose the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? That would be great. All right, we need to take one more quick break and get back with your Carlos's favorite thing, which it feels like for a while we haven't done that for a while. But so you probably have lots of stuff to choose from. I look forward to hearing what that is right after this break. Will be when we come back with what's the name of our show? Oh, Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. It's that time of the show, Carlos. I want to hear what your favorite thing is.
My favorite thing is that, my wife and I probably go to, I would say, a handful of concerts or, whatever performances, comedy shows, music, whatever, every year. Not that many. And we hadn't gone to a comedy show in a really long time, like years and years. And we went to our first one last weekend. It was in Royal Oak. It was Ryan Hamilton. He's not a top tier comic, but he has a Netflix special out. So it's a year or two old, whatever. We really liked him. And so he was performing and it's here, let's do it. And we went and we had a good time. But the thing was that I'd kind of forgotten about the comedy shows, and he was really good. He had a really good, actually, opening act comic when you did 15 minutes. But Hamilton went out. I mean, most of them run about an hour, and he went about an hour and a half. And, there was a little bit of crowd work in it too, which was really good, but it was just a fun time. But listening to, I don't know what that venue holds, maybe 1,000 or so, 1,500 people laugh. I mean, he was really good, and it was consistent. Having that many people laugh for that long, for that period of time, it was just something that it does something to you. You don't ever experience that in any other walk of life. And it'd been so long, I think, since we I can't even remember who the last comic was that we went to see. But it was just a really uplifting event to go there and hear so many people laughing. And my wife loved it. She laughed really hard. I did too. It was just a great experience. And we're like, you know what? We need to do this more often. So we're going to go see another comic probably pretty soon. But it was a really joyful event, good night of entertainment. And I would recommend Ryan Hamilton if he ever comes through Michigan again. He's a good act, works hard, and it was very enjoyable.
Well, that sounds great. My favorite thing is being back with you. I missed last week. We haven't talked in a while. I assume you took some time off, I hope. A couple of days here and there, right? I don't know if you got a chunk of time together, but we were able to spread out a few days here and there. So that's good. And then my other favorite thing is that my boys came over to watch the Super Bowl with me, which I was surprised that they still want to do that. So I don't know how much longer. Yeah, and my oldest had other plans and went for the first half with some girlfriend's family and all that kind of stuff. But he's like, nope, I want to be back and watch the second half. And so, yeah, I'll take that as long as I can get it. I don't know how much longer that's going to last. So that was my other favorite thing.
That's because you cooked. That's why you enticed them with all your food.
I did cook a little bit. No, I didn't cook a ton. I took it. My wife said she was proud of me for not going crazy this time and going overboard. I kept it fairly simple. So I did make some salsa though. Oh yeah, your famous salsa. You got to send me the recipe. It's not really famous salsa, and it's always good, but sometimes it's better than others. It's one of those things. You know how that goes. But all right, we need to cut our poor producer loose and get the listener out. And that means we got to thank some people. Carlos. Yeah, let's thank our producer, Robin Chan, who, got a whole week off too. He that was his favorite thing, was he got a break from us, I think. Didn't have to deal with us. Awesome. Executive producers, Kirkland Crawford and Jeanette Delgado, and Free Press editor, Nicole Avery Nichols. But mostly Shawn, of course, your favorite, who is the most important person we need to thank? The listeners, the folks that spend time with us every week. Thank you. You can. I don't know. Do we really need to keep saying you can find? Yeah, we do. We'll say it because this is what we do. Newspapers are slow to change, slow to adapt. Although we do have a lot of good stuff in the newspaper. I'm just saying, we're an older institution. How about that? Is that the right way to say it? Venerable. Venerable. Okay, that's a nice euphemism. Nice word, by the way. No, you can find us wherever you find your favorite podcast. The key, of course, is to subscribe and rate us when you get there. We love those subscriptions. We love those ratings. All right, Carlos, until next week when we return and get into some of the other teams. There are other teams, right? I know it's weird. It's mid-February. We're still talking about the Lions, but yeah, that was different. So yeah, next week we'll be back and we'll dig into the other winter sports and other teams. I think there's a summer team that's starting to come. Spring training games start in a week and a half, something like that, a week. Today, pitchers and catchers have reported it's done. It's halfway done. They reported the games starting 6-7 days, 5 days, I don't know, week. Anyway, 10 days. Okay, that's what I thought, a week and a half. So yeah, that too. All right. Until next week, when we return with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn, thanks for listening.